Hey folks, Jason here with Dirt Race Life. So we are ready to put the front end together on our new metric street stock build. I've got the parts laid out here. I've got a plan. I want us to assemble it together and take some measurements, see how well we do on getting the bump steer worked out for this metric street stock. So let's get started. Parts we're going to use in this build. I have an 800 series Saginaw steering sector on this car. It was brand new from last year on my Crush. It's got a 12.7 to 1 steering ratio, and on a 2 to 1 that gets me at like 6 to 1 total for my steering ratio, which is what I wanted. But because it's an 800 series, this pitman arm right here is for an 800 series box or a suite box. So the suite is based on the 800 series. So it's the larger hole right here. Your metric box, it has a smaller hole right here for it to go onto the actual steering sector. But I needed that 2 1/4 inch drop right there, and I needed that 7/16 tapered hole on this end to go on the newer style center link. All right. So special arm right here. I will, on my website, I will put a link to this arm on dirtracelife.com. As far as the idler goes, this is a stock metric idler right here. So we've got that 2 1/4 or maybe a 2 1/2 inch drop right there. But distance wise, this thing's like 6 inches center to center on the drop. Now, on the inner tie rod ends, you gotta remember, I've got Rachel in the Camaro, and I really wanna run identical setups where I can between those cars, because as far as like all my spare parts that are in the trailer and stuff, would really help me out if I didn't have to have completely different steering stuff. And so for that reason, these work fine. The angle right here doesn't change how it acts as far as steering and bump. It's just clearance. It gives us some more clearance to get around with your frame horn. So it's not going to hurt anything. So I've got a left and right, but there is a difference you need to be aware of. When you use these Camaro inner arms, that is a 7/16 fine thread left hand. And if you're running a metric inner tie rod end, that is a 5/8 fine thread left hand. And because of that, there's a very specific swedge tube that we're running. These swedge tubes right here are 5/8 right hand fine thread on one end and 11/16 fine thread left hand on the other end. So when you turn it in one direction, it tightens the whole thing up. You turn it in the other end, it makes it all get longer. Well, that's why you run a right hand on one end and left hand on the other, so that swedge tube will do that. The only place I have found these, Speedway has them, and that's the only spot. And so I keep them, I use them on, I'm gonna use them on this new car, I'm gonna use them on that car. But the part number on this thing is 10-34259, you know, and it's a 9-inch tube, 11/16 left hand, 5/8 right hand. That's the only place I have found this thing. They're not expensive. I think these things run $9 or $10 a piece. And so I have tore up a few, you know, been a few where I've went too far and gotten into the horn and stuff like that. But, you know, they're pretty indestructible. So that's what I use. I've been using these aluminum jobs from Speedway because they're very inexpensive, but I think they're discontinuing them because I just bought 2 more, and there's the part number for them, 117-101-0P. It's like these right here, I would run these for the whole season, and unless I actually tore it up, it's like it was still tight. With just that nylon insert, but the one that was like steel on steel that was greasable right here, which it is a high articulation, so you know, if you need it, you need it, but it seems like I'm wearing these out a lot faster than I am just these simple aluminum ones that are inexpensive. So I don't know, I think they're discontinuing those. I may have to go to something else that's got like that nylon insert right there, but I like those. So that's what I'm gonna stick with. We're gonna put it together, see how it does. Let's talk about this center link right here. This thing right here is nothing but a Generation 3 Camaro center link. I checked it, I measured it. It is 23 1/8 inch center to center on this drag link right here. And that is exactly what a Generation 3 Camaro. So what's Generation 3 Camaro? That is your 82 up So like that's your next Camaro, you know, where that, you know, you've got that strut front end. That one right there, that's what that center link is. And like I looked on just the mail order, like Rock Auto, and they went from $18 to $49. Now, why are they doing that? Okay, let's start talking about putting it together. So I read the instructions that came with the AFCO center link, and they're telling you in the instructions that it doesn't actually fit correctly. Which, when I started measuring everything, I agree, it doesn't fit correctly. But it's still significantly better than just a stock one. Here's the deal. The center holes that the inner tie rod ends hook onto, it widens them way out several inches from what stock is to get them in alignment with your lower control arms so that when you go through bump, your tie rod ends controlling your spindle and your lower control arm are working closer together. And so that gets rid of this huge bump out issue that metric cars have if you've got completely stock front end. It helps you significantly. The problem is that the overall width of this drag length is 1 inch too much. It's 1 inch too long. It's like 23 and an 1/8 inch from point to point on the pitman arm and the idler, when it really needs to be like 22 inches. So when I read the instructions, it said that it's not going to be parallel and just to center it. So let me show y'all. Like when I set the pitman arm here completely straight, say if I set this straight here, so like that's straight, okay? That idler is leaned out because this arm is like 1 inch longer than what a metric is. So what the instruction said was to center it, which I agree, you know, like you want to be centered where that, like, in other words, the center cross here, distance to the 2 points would be exactly the same, and that's not the best way to measure it. The best way to measure it would be to take and do an X where it's exactly the same. Let's put it all together and see what the bump looks like with this thing. All right, so I've got it on there. I've got it, everything is screwed all the way in as tight as it will go on both ends. And I have already seen my first thing with it screwed all the way in, and that's the drag link centered. I'm turned out quite a bit. So using this 9-inch special swedge tube right here with everything screwed all the way together, just like the instructions said, even on a stock setup, I'm gonna need to take some of the end of my inner tie rod end off of this drag link right here. So I'm gonna take these 2 inner tie rod ends, I'm gonna take 1 inch off of them on both sides. Pretty obvious, gonna have to do that. So I'll knock that out right quick and we'll put it back together and then we'll proceed. And we'll hit 0 here, and we'll hit 0 here, and then we turn around and we're off to the races. So we're gonna go up 1 inch and see what we got. All right, let's see, we bumped out about 75,000, so that's rolling that way. About 75 on the first inch. Go up another inch and see what we get. So another inch, and we're at like 24 and 172. So that's about 150, 148 thousandths bump out. And then let's go that last inch. We were going to do 3 inches total. All right, so I've went up 3 inches and I'm 67 and 307. So I went out 240 thousandths over 3 inches. So that's, yeah, that's pretty terrible. That's pretty terrible. So like that was me just throwing that 1 inch spacer in there. I have no idea. Let's look at the front and look at the geometry and see like which way does that need to go. So like that 1 inch spacer right there set the level of that joint with the ball joint both to the same across. My tie rod end right here is slightly higher. So you see the bolt right there? I'm just a little bit above that bolt. Not much, y'all, but how much? Maybe just, maybe a half, 3/8 of an inch higher. Okay, so that That point being higher means as these two work together, they are going to move separately from each other. So I shorten this up by 3/8 of an inch so that I've raised this up where it's the same on both ends as far as the height above the pivot points for the lower control arm. And I'm going to zero everything. I'm set up and ready to go. I'm going to go back through the same thing again. It's 163,000 over 3 inches. So significant improvement in reducing the amount of bump out by doing that. Now I've got it leveled. If I go further, is it going to improve it? Yeah, but what's going to happen is that first inch, I'll bet, will start bumping in and then out because I still have a problem. I'm just changing that relationship so that those arcs where they cross each other of those two planes, I'm changing the point at which they cross is what's going to happen. I think I can improve this. Let me show you how. Let's see if it'll fix it. So I turned my steering box to get my pitman arm straight now. That moved my center link over 1/2 inch. Now that makes my idler be at even more angle to the left. But if this works out, we're going to relocate that and fix that thing. We're just testing right now. Of course, my inner tie rod and swedge tube and stuff, I had to shorten it way up. And that's what I was after, actually, was shortening that up. So let's look over here. I put those 3 spacers in that gets them both on the same plane as far as level goes. But I have actually shortened this link up about 1 inch. I'll end up having to actually shorten this tube up, cut some of the tube off, and I had to take the jam nut off this end right now just to get this down to where I could get the alignment right for us to test it. It's good enough to test. I've got everything set up. We're going to zero it again, and let's see what this looks like. So that's 1 inch. I bumped out 4 thousandths. There's that next inch. So that's 19,000. All right, so I gained 15 thousandths in the 2nd inch. Let's see what this 3rd inch is. Okay, 3rd inch, 173, 223. So that's what, 50? That's 50 thousandths. All right, total. So what I did was I went 4 thousandths, 15 thousandths, 31 thousandths. If I was to take and move this center link over even further, I can get this curve even better. And I want it better. But I'm not going to move the center link over further. I have the pitman arm right now exactly straight like it needs to be. I know how to fix the idler arm location. I want to even have a shorter drag link over here on this side. How am I going to do it? I'm going to modify that center link. That's going to be spectacular, y'all. That is going to be spectacular. Fill this other hole back up. So we moved the hole over 3/4 of an inch. I moved it down 1/4 inch, roughly, as close as I could tell measuring and stuff. I have been cooling off this end, this centered bearing right here, and I need to get this out and then cool it again. I've been dipping this end in a cup of water a couple of times, wicking that heat off, but I'm not rapid cooling right here. I'm letting all of that slow cool. I'm just trying to keep that centered bearing right there from just getting cooked from all of that heat in this small point, you know, pushing up into it. I can feel it's really warm all the way back here, so I know that's really hot. As far as like safety wise, you see I welded the other hole up. I built that up all the way around, just as thick as it was before, plus I've got all that original. But again, your safety is your responsibility. That move right there in combination with the other changes is gonna get us some really great numbers on that bump on that right front. So let me get this thing cooled off on the end, make sure I don't cook that bearing, and then we'll throw it back on there. I took 3/4 of an inch off of that swedge tube, shortened that whole drag link up another 3/4 of an inch, because that's how much I moved that hole over. Got it all lined back up, bolted back up, and let's just see just how good we are. 4137. So it's 4 thousandths. So I got 4 thousandths in, 0.004 in. On the second inch, I'm 103 and 102. So I'm like right on my 0 point on the second inch of bump. So because I'm right now, I'm bumped in 1 thousandths. I was bumped in 4 thousandths, which means that second inch, I went out 3 thousandths. This is gonna be it right here. And then let's go this third inch. Now I should start gaining some bump out in this third inch. 190 and 205, so that's 15 thousandths bumped out. I was 1 thousandths bumped in, so I gained 16 thousandths bump out in the third inch. That is beautiful. But in 4 and then out 3 and out 16, like right here, like what we are now, money right there. I cannot ask for, like, that's beautiful. So it's just geometry. That's all it is. It's sitting there looking, but I'm hoping that you're seeing the difference between where the drag link is at and how that is the size of the curve, like how much it gains or how much it loses, you know, as you compress, versus, you know, where that 0 point of intersection of where it's bumping in and bumping out, that's being controlled by the stacking heights. Like, you can't just change the height of an idler arm or change the height of the shims, you know, out here on the spindle and fix Bumpsteer. You've got to be looking at that center link location, at the, you know, at the spindle's arm location, and, you know, how long that drag link is, and that's creating that curve, you know, that's like those big numbers, because we started out with some terrible numbers, y'all. All right, we're done with this. We've got a plan for it. It's perfect. I'm not going to fool with this anymore on this right front. Let's move that idler arm and then get the left front set up on it, because we're not going to be able to get as good on that left front, y'all. That's okay. I want to get perfection on this right front. That's where all the work is happening on that initial corner entry where bump can really mess us up. Let's get busy. So since I've got the pitman arm straight in alignment, well, that extra 1 inch longer center link is making that all be in that idler arm right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unbolt this idler arm. I am going to cut a square pocket up through the bottom of the frame, and I'm going to move this thing over 1 inch. That's simple. It's off an inch. I'm going to move it over an inch. There we go, there we go, there we go, there we go, there we go. I'll dress these out. This is just for right now. Just what we call it, proof of concept. This is proof of concept. There we go. All right, good and tight. Okay, so now let me level it back up and see how close to square it gets. Y'all come here. Now I'm back where I should be. See, I've corrected it. Yep. Well, I've measured this left side a couple of times, made adjustments on it, looking at it, it's not going to work. So like on that right side, with that 16-inch center to center on the lower control arm, once we got that drag link down to 16 inches and got the plane set the same, bump got perfect on that right side. Well, on this left side, getting the plane the same, it's not going to help me, because the drag link itself is 19 inches long on this setup right now, and with that 16-inch lower control arm right there, the arc differences between the 19-inch tie rod and the 16-inch lower, they are just too crazy different from each other. So like when I compressed it and went it in bump, it was going out over 50 thousandths an inch. Matter of fact, the first inch from level up, it went 50. The second inch, it went like 80 thousandths. You know, and on this left side, I want to look at like 2 inches of compression and at least like 1 inch of extension. Big changes going on here that I cannot get out of it. Got to do something, got to fix something, so let's do that. I've got the center link back off the car. Of course, you can see where that we reworked the right side of the car right here, and it only went 3/4 of an inch and got all that to work out perfect. This side over here, oh, it's going to take a lot to get to perfect. And I can't get there, but I can't leave it as bad as it is. Like I looked, and I would have to move this whole 3 inches. So like, I would be way over here, see, right on where the actual pitman arm connects on. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. But can I get closer so that I can get some numbers I can live with? Yes, I can. How am I going to do it? We're going to use a donor. All right, so I'm going to take, and what I'm going to do is I am going to just cut a section out. I'm going to take and grind all of this down. I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to cut this off right here and smooth that out. I'm going to cut it off right there. I'm going to put them on the same plane to each other, and then I'm going to weld that in. So remember, way modified stuff. I looked at my rules though, and my rules, I can't have an adjustable center link. Doesn't mean that I can't have a center link that just has the holes re-drilled or anything like that. It just can't be a center link that where that you've got, you know, they make center links where that you can like turn and adjust and stuff. So rule wise, I'm fine, but we are definitely way outside the box on trying to come up with a good front end for this car. So bear with me, folks. We're going to make this work. Oh yeah, that pulled it right in there. All right. There it goes. All right. Thank you, donor. Appreciate the donation. You know what I really love about this right here? Totally stock components, dirt cheap. You can buy this stuff, 20 or 30 bucks, or go to a junkyard and get it, and just spend some time and effort in the shop, and you can figure out how to create like a great steering front end, fix your bump with all completely stock parts. I absolutely love it. This is the part of stock car racing and building that is like my jam that I love, is this stuff right here. Figuring out how to build a better mousetrap for less money. That's what it's all about, y'all. So I've got my bump steer gauge set up here. I had to trim this thing down another inch. I couldn't quite get low enough, but I am 1 inch extended right now, and I've zeroed everything out because I want to go from 1 inch extended through 2 inches of bump. I think that's my range. I really want to make sure my bump works, but I'm zeroed out, and now I'm happy with the numbers. But I'm going to come up 1 inch here. Make sure yep, right there. Okay, so check this out. So that's that first inch from it being extended coming back to level. 217, 216, changed 1/1000th is all. It's like, know where my 0 point's at? Definitely right there as far as the planes go. And then when I come up into bump, all right, so now I'm 1 inch into compression, and I've got 380 and 367. That's 13,000, y'all, is all that is. Like, I am tickled. So then turn around, and I said I wanted to go 1 inch extended and 2 inches compressed. So let me go up 1 more inch. Okay, so now I'm 2 inches into compression, and I think that's all I'm going to see on this left front. And I've got 598 and 560, so that's 38,000. I already had like 13 of that. So that second inch of a compression, it moved 25,000. So you can see I'm not perfect on the length as far as that goes, but man, is it so much better than it was. Like, I can live with this, especially with that first inch of extension, like only swinging like 1/1000th and then an inch of compression, you know, only bumping out, you know, 13,000ths. I can live with that. This car is going to drive great. I've never done a metric street stock like this before where I was working on the bump and stuff. So this was all new to me, just figuring it out as we go, figuring out the geometry, how to get those curves and planes to give us those great numbers. Really not that bad. You just got to take your time and, you know, measure it and then like figure out like what is the car asking you for to get a better number. We just went through that process, made some modifications to that center link on where the holes were drilled through it, and we got there. Not a big deal. Remember, anything you're modifying in your steering system, on your suspension and stuff, you got to make sure that however you do it, whatever parts you're using, you do it safely and you are comfortable with the work that you're doing, or get someone that does have that competence to do it. The type of work I did right there, I'm totally comfortable with. If you'll notice, I never actually cut that center link apart. I was just modifying where the hole was on the center links. Totally comfortable with that. I don't think I would actually cut one and change the links on or anything. I'm uncomfortable with that level of modification. Rule-wise, at some point, I think you get into a gray area. It's still the same center link, and the rules for Crate Racing USA say I just can't have one that's adjustable. And it's not adjustable. So I really love the idea of using inexpensive parts and making them work better, which is what we did here. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this helps somebody figure out how to create a great driving street stock. Thank you for your patience and sticking with me. I know it was a long one. If you're not subscribed, guys, you know, like subscribe, turn on your notifications, and consider sponsoring us here at Dirt Race Life. Check out my website, dirtracelife.com, to find out more about becoming a member of the channel. See you next time.